we're going to spend just a little bit of time backing up from network marketing and talk about networking. Slight difference there, but about a year ago, Jason and I, we were working day, night, week, month, trying to get everything ready to launch and build. And since I had not come up through network marketing, I had lots of questions for Jason. And we had lots of disagreements, wouldn't you say, Jason? Over what we should do, how we should do it, all that kind of stuff.
A few.
And I remember one day I was really frustrated. I was like, I just don't know if I can do this network marketing thing. And he said, you just do networking. Do networking. You know that. Do that. And we'll all succeed. Thank you for that, Jason. I don't know if you remember that from a year ago. But I've got a book I want to share with everybody. I actually ordered several copies to be here today, and Amazon failed me. But I was going to give away a few. But this is a book called The Power of Who. Anybody read this besides Nettie, Jason? No? Okay. It's written by, actually the full title is The Power of Who. You already know everyone you need to know. Okay? And it's written by a guy named Bob Beaudine, good old Texas guy from Dallas. Beaudine is spelled B-E-A-U-D-I-N-E. Bob Beaudine. In 2009, I was at a point I had a career change, and was lucky enough to hook up with a career coach who was helping me try to figure out what the next phase of my career was going to be, and sort of develop what my key strengths were, and sort of my brand and resume and all that kind of stuff. And she kept talking to me about having a personal board of directors. And I would listen to her and I'd say, yeah, sounds great. And then I'd see her a couple weeks later and she said, have you put that board together yet? I said, no, I haven't. A couple weeks later, put that board together yet? I'm thinking about it. And it went on and on and on. And finally, she handed me this book one day, and she said, go read that book this afternoon. And I did. I read it in an afternoon. It's a very short read. In fact, my daughter, who's 18, could probably read that book in about 6 minutes. She's a really fast reader. She reads those gigantic 3-inch novels that come in packs of 3 in a weekend. But anyway, it took me an hour, or excuse me, it took me an afternoon to read that. I read it, and it just floored me, this guy's sort of philosophy on personal boards and how that is impacting networking today. Different from the old days where you might go to a cocktail reception and try to pass out 300 business cards and hope that you get 2 people to call you. And so I was so taken by the book, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I thought about it all night. I woke up the next morning, I was even more excited about it. And so I picked up the phone and I called this guy's office. And I said, may I speak with Bob Beaudine? And the lady said, what's your name? And I said, Kevin Weiss. She said, one moment, let me see. Which I thought was code for, he's not in today. Next thing I know, it's Bob Beaudine on the other end. And I told him in the next 5 minutes how much this book had impacted me and what I was going to go do to build my own personal board. And he's the most fantastic guy you can imagine. He's a guy like Doc Lee. You know, just talk to you all day long, make you feel very special for that 5-minute period that you're there. So that's what I did. And Bob Beaudine is actually in this picture. So, anybody recognize the guy on the left?
Yeah.
Okay, that's not Bob Beaudine. That's George W. Bush, and Bob Beaudine is on the right. Bob wrote this book, and this was the period of time that this picture was taken was around the time that George W. Bush was the owner of the Texas Rangers. Everybody remember that time period?
Yeah.
And he had owned them for a few years. And he was ready to kind of do something next in his life, and he was trying to figure it out, just like a lot of us try to figure these things out. And he and Bob Beaudine are friends. Bob Beaudine, I should tell you, by the way, is what does he do for a day job? He runs a very successful executive recruiting firm. He places like CEOs at Apple, CEOs at Sony, a lot of baseball, football, basketball owners, okay? And presidents. And so George W. Bush asked him, he said, I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, what my next step is, and I just don't know. Maybe I want to be the commissioner of baseball. maybe I'll run for governor. I don't know. And so Bob Odine said, give me 2 weeks and I'll come back and I'll talk to you about what you should do. And he did that. Came back to him, he said, it's not the right time to be the commissioner. There's other people in play and they're going to probably get it. But you should run for governor. And you know what George W. Bush said?
What?
He said, I will never beat Ann Richards.
Oh.
He told Bob Odine this, I will never beat her.
Wow.
Remember how powerful and famous and loved she was when she was the governor?
Yeah.
Okay, so this was George W. Bush's mindset.
Wow.
Bob Odine said to him that day, he said, go home and for a couple of weeks, seek input from your inner circle of people and see what they think. Okay? Well, he did that. And obviously, he decided to run for governor. Won 2 terms. Then he won 2 terms as president. Very successful, right? But even he didn't see it. He didn't see the vision. I can't beat her. But his inner circle convinced him that he could. And he became very successful. I'll tell you 3 stories about networking. First of all, my daughter, for some of you have met my daughter Lily. She's 18. And she is a high school swimmer at Cinco Ranch High School. She's swam junior varsity for 2 years and varsity for 2 years. She's very fast. She is now looking at colleges and trying to figure out where to go swim. And we've been sort of, for those of you that sent your kids off to college, you start with a big list, right? And then you start to narrow it down. And as we were doing that, we came across the best option for her was University of Texas at Permian Basin. Anybody ever been there? Odessa. It's in Odessa? Good. So you can vouch that it exists.
It's there.
So she had lots and lots of coaches calling her, talking with her, interviewing her. We did several visits, but we couldn't get any response from the coach at UTPB. Nothing. Email, text, letters, calls, just nothing was generating a call back to us to tell him that she was interested in swimming there. I even employed Nettie one day to try to help me. She went stalking him on Facebook, trying to figure out what he likes, and maybe we send him a gift. Talked to Jason about how to try to reach this guy. And one night we were at home, and my wife said, hey, what about Dennis Currier? And I said, Dennis Currier, old friend of ours who was a soccer coach at Harris Stowe University when I lived in St. Louis. We were neighbors. He's since moved on to Dayton. He's a big soccer coach at Dayton. And I said, well, what would Dennis Currier have? What would he do? I mean, he's a soccer coach, and he lives 2,000 miles away from this guy. She said, I don't know, you just might try it. So I texted him that night, and I said, hey, do you know this guy, UTPB coach? He wrote me back and said, no, I don't know him, but what do you need? And I said, I need him to call my daughter and talk to her about swimming on her team, his team. He said, all right, if you do me a favor, send me an email, give me all Lily's stats, what she's done, what her best events are, what her times are, and what she wants to do. So I typed it out that night, I shot it off to him. He wrote me back and said, I got it. At 10:45 the next morning, my cell phone rings during a meeting. I think I was with you, Jason. It was the coach of UTPB. And he said, my apologies, some of the communication did not make it through to me, firewall, spam, whatever. And then your calls I missed because we've been on the road for a week. He said, but I want to talk to your daughter. Is she available tonight? So, rapid next, they had an interview. We're going to see that coach in January, and he's already verbally offered her scholarship to swim there.
Yes.
So, all right, I'd love to tell a story about how I got to Jason Bournet. It's not as long a story, but it's very similar. There was a gentleman that we were working with named Steve, and I asked him one day, I said, we want to build a network marketing company, will you do it for us? We wanted to kind of outsource it. And he said, no, it's not our thing. We do direct sales. But I know a guy that you might want to talk to. And he said, his name's Bill, and here's his phone number. So I called Bill, and Bill said, he talked to me, very nice guy, talked for a while, got to know him a little bit, and he said, I can't do this, but I know a guy you should call. In fact, I'll set up a call for you. And he said his name's Jason Bournet. And we talked on the phone briefly. Within 2 weeks, we were meeting at the Bonton Cafe, as we all tell the story, in New Orleans, meeting there, laying out the vision for this company. And all that took me was 2 phone calls. To get the man that I always wanted to help me run this company. It is who you know.
Yes, it is.
Another interesting one is how I got to Entrust, and I tell this one to dovetail into the next slide. But I did eventually go on to create a personal board, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But one of my board members was a very good friend of mine that I met through actually our daughters. They went to preschool together. This is now 13 years ago. And the daughters met in preschool, and then you know how that works, Bronson. The wives meet because they pick them up at the same time. And then the wives go to lunch, and then the wives say, hey, let's have the guys together for dinner. And we did that, and we've been fast friends since then. I even hired him to come work with us at Direct for a while. And anyway, he's on my personal board. And my board had been going for about a year, I would say. And one day he called me. He knew, what I'll tell you in brief is that I didn't have the vision for what my next step was, but my board did from day one. And they kept trying to push me there, which was to build a consulting firm. I eventually listened after 6 months, and within 4 months, I had clients coming out that, you know what, I couldn't even keep up with everything. And one of my clients was Entrust Energy. But the way I got to Entrust Energy was through my board member, his name's Ramel, knowing what I wanted to do, and him knowing what my skill sets were. And one day he called me on the phone, and he said, did you know that there's an Australian energy company coming to Texas? This was in 2010, early 2010. I said, no, I don't, but I'll try to check it out. He didn't know anything except the rumor. So I went to work researching. I found out that Australian Power and Gas was that company. I blindly wrote a letter to the president, Jim Myatt. You've all heard me refer to him. He's on the board now, asking if he would need any help. I didn't say I needed a job. I just said, I hear you're coming, and I've got some experience in this market, a few years, and if you need anything, just let me know.
Wow.
No response for a month. I think I even followed up one other time just to say, hey, did you get my email? No response, nothing. A few days later, I get a phone call from this guy on my cell phone. He says, is this Kevin West? I said, yes. He said, are you interested in some consulting work to help this Australian company that's coming to Texas? And I said, sure. I met him 2 days later, Four Seasons Hotel. Went to work for him doing consulting, and about a month after that, he said, can you shut down your consulting business and come work full-time as an executive with Entrust Energy? All through my board member, Ramel. Wouldn't have happened any other way. Would not have happened. It is who you know, right? Okay, so what is a personal board? And this is Bob Bodine's philosophy on personal boards. So these aren't I didn't create this. It's in this book, but I want to share it with you. And before I share it talk through the top, we'll give you a quote that Bob Bodine says. He says, it has been very revealing to me over my years as an executive recruiter, in interview after interview, to realize that a significant and differentiating factor of one candidate over the other was the quality of their personal board or lack of them. Interesting, isn't it? Okay, so who do you invite to be in your personal board? You start with your best friend, okay? So jot that person's name down. That's got to be the first person you invite. And that's the friend that's going to tell you when you screwed up, going to tell you when you've really done well. Then you can add 3 other good friends to that. People you maybe not hang out with all the time, but they're very good friends that they'll help you with whatever you ask of them. Then add 8 other people. And most of the times these are almost like, everybody knows the sort of, you've got colleagues that are kind of friends too. and you don't really know if that's going to sustain itself until you move on to the next opportunity and see if they follow you, or see if you stay in touch, right? To me, that's a good mix of people there to put in this category. Add your spouse. They got to be in it with you, right? They got to know. They got to be able to tell you. You can add one parent, not two. Pick one. There's probably one parent that will give you the, I have a parent that will tell me exactly what they think, and then one parent that will tell me what she thinks I want to hear. And I love that. But it doesn't really help. If you don't have your parents, reach out to an aunt, uncle, somebody else that is close to you and your family. You need a financial advisor. And you may do this professionally, or you may have a friend who's a financial advisor in some capacity that can just share with you tips on what you need to do in the realm of financial support and managing all the wealth that you're going to create over the next few years. You need somebody to help you with legal issues. Again, could be a professional person you hire, or could be a friend that knows a little bit about law and can help you if you've got something sticky. A spiritual advisor. For some of you, this may be someone at church. Could be someone that you reach out to on a basis and just feel like they touch you in a spiritual way. So you want to have that person. And then last one is a career life coach. And again, I think for most people, this can be one of your good friends too. Because there's always somebody in your circle that has had a lot of success and can help coach and guide you through that. So it's 18 people. And then you might say, what do you do with them? Once you've got them all figured out. Well, I'll tell you what I did. And I got it from an idea in the book. There was a State Farm agent who was getting his business going. And he loved orchestra, loved symphony. So once a quarter, he would invite his 18 people to come to his house and listen to an orchestra play. Just a nice little event. And all that he would ask of them to come every quarter is that they bring one other person. And over the next 2 years, he became Southern California's largest State Farm agent. Only because he used his friends to help him get to what he wanted, and he did it with an activity that he loved, right? So I like to drink wine. You do too. So I invited my 18 people to a little wine store, and I just paid for wine, cheese for a couple hours, and I just asked them to give me feedback. And I did that for a whole year, every 3 months. And again, back to it. A year had passed when I had stopped doing it. That's when Ramel called me, because he had remembered all those meetings and sessions that we had, helping me try to get what I wanted. So with that, I'll take any questions. That's the book, and the idea and the thoughts. Any questions anybody has? Jackie? Who's on your board, Jackie? Rosie?
Rosie, my mother, my 2 daughters. Nettie.
Nettie?
Oh, yeah.
Chairman of the board? All right, good. Well, hopefully that gives you something to think about. If you're interested in more, I'd tell you to absolutely buy the book. It was a game changer for me, and hope it is for you. All right, Jason, it's back to you.
Yes.